Hello, hello, plant-based advocates. I am really excited to talk today about weight gain on a plant-based diet because I think that in the entire realm of plant-based living, you hear so many controversial sort of statements. And one of the major ones that I hear all the time is that with all of the carbohydrates, how do I not gain weight? Or I transferred to a plant-based diet and I've noticed that I've been gaining more weight. And so today I want to speak a little bit on why this would be happening and also how you can avoid this happening. So I'm going to give you some actionable steps after this conversation about what you can start doing today so that you can make sure that your weight stays manageable, especially when you do increase carbohydrates, which is inevitable on a plant-based diet. So if you are new here, welcome. My name is Amy. I am a plant-based digestion specialist and focused in Eastern wisdom. So I fuse together wisdom from the Vedas and from yogic philosophy with modern nutrition and science. And so without further ado, let's dive in. So I think it's important to first start by understanding two major hormones that play a huge role in our weight regulation. The first is insulin and the second is cortisol. Insulin is a sugar regulating hormone, and so when we consume foods that break down into glucose or sugar in the body, insulin is responsible for distributing that glucose to our cells. It's responsible for storing it in our muscles and doing what it's supposed to do. So insulin is really, really great that way. Cortisol, on the other hand, also known as our stress hormone, is a hormone that increases our blood sugar levels temporarily because it is designed to give us excess energy so that we can either fight or flight in situations of stress. Now, both are wonderful, and there are obviously pros and cons to having too much or too little of any of these hormones, but today we're going to speak to the average person who is not dealing with a major hormonal imbalance, but maybe a minor one, which is keeping you from losing belly fat or losing that excess few pounds. So we have more cortisol receptors in our belly adipose tissue. So adipose tissue, aka fat cells, we have them all over our body, right? But they have receptors for cortisol, the stress hormone, and we have more of those receptors on the fat cells in our belly, which is why we can gain belly fat more easily than anywhere else, especially as women. So it's important to understand that when either of these hormones are present in the body, so whether that's insulin, which is actually there to distribute and redistribute all of that glucose, or when cortisol is present in the body, we cannot lose weight. And so one of the major reasons that you might be finding that you struggle to lose weight, especially on a plant-based diet, is because you have excess of either of these hormones floating around at all times, which makes it not possible to actually go into a fat burning state. So when insulin is present, we don't lose weight. So this is why it's important to not be snacking constantly throughout the day and eating all of the time, because we keep the insulin levels so high that we don't actually get to go into that fat burning zone when the body knows that it's safe to actually burn fat. It's sort of a survival instinct that was built into our evolution. So this is how we have to think of it. Cortisol, on the other hand, because it's a stress hormone and it's designed to release some of that glucose so that into our muscles, into our cells, so that we can run away from a lion that's chasing us if we were stressed out like that, it actually diverts any energy away from the digestive system so that it makes digestion not possible and a lot more tricky to actually go through the process. So it's important that we regulate these hormones, and we can do that not only through our diet, but also through our lifestyle and possibly supplementation if that's a path that you would like to take. So the dietary recommendations I make for people in order to regulate their insulin and their hormone levels, the first one is fiber. So fiber is abundant on a plant-based diet, and that is so wonderful because I think that there's a really big disconnect. There's so much of a focus on protein all of the time, and especially for omnivores or fitness people that they have to get enough protein, but we always seem to forget about fiber. And realistically, protein deficiency is extremely rare. And in fact, a protein deficiency is only really seen in true starvation in somebody who is not being nourished and completely malnourished. So really the hyper focus should be on fiber and getting enough of it. Fiber is like the natural antidote to sugar, so it actually slows how quickly sugar is released into your body, which means that it's going to help to regulate that insulin release as well. The other thing would be to focus on protein. And I know on a plant-based diet, where do I get my protein? But don't worry, you are getting enough protein. There are amino acids, the building blocks to protein, in every single plant-based food. So if you're focusing on foods that have higher quantities of protein, like tempeh or beans and nuts and seeds, those to support how your blood sugar levels are going to be regulated. And then the third and final dietary tip is to, and I know you've heard this before, but eat your veggies, eat your greens, because having too many processed foods, having too many refined carbohydrates and sugary foods, alcohol, caffeine, even if you're the 2 to 3 cups of coffee a day kind of person, these are going to be affecting your cortisol levels as well as your insulin levels. The high sugared foods increase insulin, which means no weight loss, and then foods that attack your adrenals, like alcohol and high amounts of caffeine, actually release more cortisol, which also means no fat burning. So we need to manage the amount of processed foods that are going in. So let's talk about some lifestyle recommendations, because if you know me and know anything about the way I work, it's not just about the food you eat or do not eat. It's about everything around that, your mindset, your lifestyle, your habits, all of it. So some habits that I would recommend are, if you find that you are a highly stressed out person, which most of us are, because hey, we live in the Western world in the year 2020 and we are currently going through a pandemic. So something that you could do is, first of all, make sure that you're getting adequate sleep. I know that's easier said than done, but when I get into the supplemental recommendations, this might help to shine some clarity on that for you. But making sure that you are getting between 7 to 9 hours a night is absolutely crucial. Our cortisol levels are on a circadian rhythm, so they flow with us. And if our circadian rhythm is out of whack, meaning that we're not getting enough sleep or we're, totally tired all of the time, it messes up our hormones and it messes up our cortisol balance, which means, again, no fat burning. So sleep is crucial. Mindfulness, meditation, yoga, maybe it's biased because I'm a yoga teacher, but we do see how these directly affect our hormone levels. There are so many studies out there that are showing that mindfulness, meditation, simply taking 5 minutes a day can completely alter the way that your hormones and your chemicals work in your body. So finding some sort of practice that is mindful and calming for you is going to help with your cortisol levels, which means more fat burning. Make sure, I'm just going to check my notes here, make sure I didn't forget anything here. Yeah, I'm going to end there for the lifestyle, but then we're going to get into some supplemental recommendations. So with supplements, I don't like to recommend generally supplements because we all have very different needs and not everybody needs supplements. They're definitely not the first thing that I reach for. However, if you find that you do typically feel very stressed out, if you're the kind of person who has a high stress job, a family, lots of projects on the go, and it's hard to manage, that emotional stress can actually impact us sometimes more than physical stress can, up to 80 times more, I've even heard, which is insane. And so we have to recognize that sometimes our family, sometimes things that we do every day, like our actions and our hobbies, actually bring stress to us, even though we might hide it or even though we might not. So I'm not saying you need to go cancel your life and stop working and never see your family again, but instead what you might find helps is using some supplementation. And so the number one supplement that I would say for that would be like a generally safe supplement to take for almost everybody at almost every stage. And again, disclaimer, I am not your physician. I do not know your current health conditions. And so any supplemental recommendation given to you by anybody on the internet should be backed by your physician. And if you are looking for a nutritionist, holla holla, because I'm here, you can send me a DM and I'd be happy to talk with you more in depth about this. But as I mentioned, this is a generally safe supplement, which is magnesium. Magnesium is one of my favorite because it is a stress busting mineral. It's so cool. It helps to relax the body. It helps to relax your muscular system. So if you've been training and lifting weights at the gym and you're sore, magnesium is going to help with that. It's going to help if you're not sleeping very well. So you can take a little bit of magnesium before going to bed. And it typically comes in a powdered form. You just put it in some hot water. It gets really bubbly and then it goes down and then you can drink it. And sometimes they're flavored, so they actually taste pretty nice as well. So when you think of magnesium, you want to think of relaxation. It's going to help your body control your blood sugar levels. How cool is that? So if you are noticing that you do snack a lot or you do have sugar cravings, and you are the type of person who likes to snack throughout the day and your insulin levels are constantly super high, your cortisol levels are out of whack, magnesium is going to help bring that into balance. Anyways, that is it for now. So recap of this call, we talked about stress. We talked about the two major stress hormones, one major stress hormone and one blood sugar regulating hormone, insulin and cortisol. We talked about how they are working in the body and possibly working against you when it comes to your weight. And then we also discussed some dietary, some lifestyle, and some supplemental recommendations to get you on track so that you are feeling balanced and good, and you can start dropping that excess belly fat that just is stubborn and won't go away. Really hope that this was of value to you, and if it was, drop a message in the comments below, because I'd love to know that that this is reaching anybody, even one person. That would be so awesome. And also feel free to leave a suggestion. I love suggestions on more topics for Wellness Wednesday. If there's anything that you want to know in the realm of plant-based nutrition, mindfulness, and sustainability, then this is the place. And if you are not yet subscribed, you can hit that button below, do the thing, and I will catch you on the flip side. See you next Wednesday.